All right, guys, thank you for joining us for another episode of Black Coffee and Crime. This is episode 21. Myself, Brandy, I am here. And we have Jackie, and then we are also joined by Brandy Watts, who started off as to be like a guest host, but she keeps coming back. So she's here. So she's a part of the team now, I guess. So when she's able to be on location and live in front of us, that's wonderful. But sometimes she will join us remotely. So from some unknown place. So we are here today. This episode was actually suggested by Brandy. Where we talk about false accusations and the consequence of those false accusations on the Black community. There's lots of stories where this has happened. We won't be able to cover all of those stories today, but we will get to some of them. Some of them you've heard about, and we'll talk about those, and then some we might bring up that you are not familiar with. But as always on this show, we start off with the church announcements. The church announcements are as follows. Please always respect your ushers, obey them. Do not chew gum during service. Listen to your pastor. Always be respectful to us. So if you have comments, please leave them, but be respectful.
Yes.
The content, we can talk about race because that's what we talk about all the time, but we don't do bigoted and we don't do racism here. So if it's not constructive, you have to go. You and your comments will be blocked. Um, if there's stories that we've missed, facts that we've missed, or whatever, leave those in the comments. Let us know about future shows, future things on shows you want us to talk about. We'll be able to do that. Leave those in the comments of the show. Any articles or information that I have, I will leave those things in the show notes. Um, Also, if you want to give us some coffee money, you can always go to Cash App at Black Coffee Crime, which is right there. So you can go and join us there and always leave some money. And as always, we like the kind that jingles, but we'd rather have the kind that folds. Amen. Amen. All right. So those are the announcements as follows. Please govern yourselves accordingly. All right. So we really don't have anything about our internet this week, but one thing that I do want to say during this pandemic, a lot of us are dealing with depression and anxiety, and it's heightened because of everything that is going on. It's loss of job, loss of family members, whatever it's heightened. Listen, do not self-diagnose, do not self-treat, do not self-medicate. If you are on medication for your depression, anxiety, take it.
Mhm.
There's a reason why you have the medication. There's just take it. There's no, we have a stigma in our Black community about mental health and medication, dealing
Yeah.
with mental health. Listen, this is why we're so fucked up. It's because we don't take the medication and we don't listen to the doctors. If anybody on this planet, being Black is a health emergency. It is,
Right.
being Black and racism is a medical issue in this country that has recently been recognized by the American Medical Association. That racism really affects our health, and it is a health crisis. Do you know how
Mhm.
crazy that is? That your skin color, your culture has become a health crisis in your own country. So that's what we're dealing with, guys. And so if you have, anxiety, depression, um, any of those things, talk about it to the right with the right people. Um,
Right.
Talk about it with people who are going through the same things. We live by social media. That's what we're doing right now. So find those groups where people are talking about the same things, because you're not by yourself. You're not the only person that's experiencing this. I hate to tell you,
And
but it's
and
all
as a
about
common
you.
as a common Christian, because I'm a Christian, it is okay to go somewhere else other than praying to God. And I'm not saying that as praying to God is great. It is good for you. I'm not saying it at all. What I'm saying is that sometimes that's not enough for you because you're already battling. Your mind is already battling. It's already going
Right.
through its own thing. So to think that that's it, No, don't sit there and put yourself through that torture. I did it for a very long time. And it took me getting
Mhm.
out of my culture to know, because my parents were the ones who said, black people don't go to no counseling.
Pray about it.
Black people don't take no
Yeah,
medicine.
or you go to your
Right.
pastor who don't have any kind of uh
Training.
experience or or training in dealing with any
Yes.
type of mental health issues.
Mhm.
And with these issues, you know, as people of African descent, we're very spiritual. However, the
Mhm.
spirits don't always speak to you in real time. When you are dealing with a mental health crisis, you need a real time
Right.
answer. Prayer does not give you an answer right now unless there's a burning bush outside, y'all. Unless the bush is on fire or there's a lot of wind going around and you know something's happening and your name is Moses and you about to write on the tablet, that's not the answer that you need. That's not what you're going to get. You need a
Right.
real-time answer. You
I
need
agree.
somebody to hear you and you need the immediate feedback. So go to those people. Don't let the stigma of mental health stop you from healing
Mhm.
and being whole, because the last thing we want to do is see someone on the news or to hear that no one listened to me. I was going through and no one heard me. We hear you. Let other people hear you. Use social media to speak out. People respond in kind. But like I said, if you've already been diagnosed or recognized with a mental health issue, if it's as small as anxiety, anxiety builds, and anxiety is a powder keg. Trust me, to where you let it go and you let it go and you let it go and you explode, and then that
You
turns into
sure
something
do.
else. Um, Take the medicine. I know a lot of us don't like to take medicine. I don't like to take medicine. I have found ways to cope with my anxiety, but sometimes I can't. And sometimes I got to go to that pill bottle. And that's just what it is. And, I no longer feel bad about having to do that. So, having said all that, y'all who look like me on this side, and then those who don't on this side, don't matter. Use the medication if you got it. If you don't got the medication, go get some. Okay. So, all right. All right. So we done said that. And, we hope that everyone has a hail and hearty week. And we want to see you back here next week and the week after. So again,
Yeah.
if you have any thoughts, whatever, please go to the proper people. I will put the suicide prevention hotline in the show notes and any other organizations that I can find dealing with mental health in the show notes so you can reach out to them privately if that's what you choose to do. All right. Okay, so y'all, let's talk about Karens. And that's what we call them now. 2020, 2019,
Yeah.
2018, we call them Karens. The phenomenon of the Karen, which basically means someone who's not minding their damn business, who proactively um, chooses to insert themselves in someone's business and causes harm. And this comes from being in your own apartment building and not being let in, people asking you questions. But Karens are not new.
No.
Our calling them out is new. Our name having a mockery or a parody of a name for them is new. But the Karen has been around in some incarnation for centuries, especially here. And I can say that now we kind of laugh about it.
Right.
It's kind of funny when we see it on social media and we're always like, that was me, blah, blah, blah. But in years past, this type of behavior has caused death and imprisonment for thousands of people, most of them people of color, and some of them allies to people of color. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about those people who have been falsely accused and the consequence of that on the Black community. And by and large, in you know the in the community at large, because if it affects us internally as a Black community, then it is going to affect everybody else. So,
Mm.
so we're going to talk openly about that. We don't usually do disclaimers here, but we're all adults. But if you feel like if you're sensitive to racial issues, please don't watch this particular episode because it's going to get pretty real in this episode.
Down and exit.
We won't use any epithets. We won't call anybody out their name, but we're going to talk about it. So that's what we're going to do today. So there are some cases that kind of stand out when it comes to this issue. Emmett Till, we talked about that a couple of episodes ago, but that is probably the one case that everybody recognizes and everybody kind of knows what happened. That happened in 1955. Emmett Till would have been 79 years old. Was it the beginning of this month in November that he would have been 79?
Yes, ma'am.
79 years old had he lived. However, he was a 14-year-old boy who lived in Chicago who went to visit his mother's family in Mississippi. He was accused of whistling at a white woman named Carolyn. What was her name? Carolyn. What was Carolyn's name?
I don't remember her last name, but it's Carolyn. But I don't remember her last name.
Carolyn Bryant, I believe her name was. Yes, Carolyn Bryant. And her husband and his brother kidnapped him, beat him severely, and murdered him. And they were acquitted 4 months later of that crime by an all-white jury in Mississippi. But then, I think 2 years later, they did an interview with Look magazine. I don't even think it was 2 years later, but they did an interview with Look magazine, and they openly admitted that yes, they did kidnap and kill him, but due to double jeopardy,
nothing can be done
about it. So those are the type of things that we'll be talking about today. So are there any particular, besides Emmett Till, are there any particular stories or cases that I'm gonna ask Jackie and then I'm gonna go to Brandy that you guys have heard about that really kind of just sit with you? So Jackie, is there any particular case of this happening that you remember that kind of just sits with you?
Oh, so many. So many. You got. I actually left my notes with names, but you got what? Susan Smith. Am I saying her name right?
You got it. Out South Carolina.
Yeah. You got the boys, the New York boys from the park, Central Park. I'm sorry, I'm really
Central
bad.
Park 5.
Yes, you got their story because I've read beyond what I watched the movie. I had to read beyond that because I get obsessed with things. So you got those two that really stood out. Emmett Till is definitely the number one for me. It stands out as one of the most infamous. That 14-year-old baby that you posted,
George Tenney.
George, yes. He stands out. I read another story about a woman in Michigan. She stood out to me, but I never caught her name. But it was just a brief, short story. I read another story. I mean, so many of them about a man. I had never read a story about a man, but there's a man. His name was George, as well as he did the exact same thing. That was in 1950 something, where he literally said that, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about because you do a lot of research, but where he said that a black man who attacks him 6 foot, he named them all out, and come to find out that wasn't the case at all. So many stories, but definitely Susan and Susan.
Okay. Susan. Now, Brandy, and now we're going to come back to Susan Smith because there's something very interesting going on with that case. Because she's been in jail for the last over 20 years since her murdering her children. So we'll come back to Susan Smith. But Brandy, are there any particular cases that kind of stand out to you and just?
There was one this year in March. Remember the lady, I think her name is Patricia Ripley, who had the autistic kid that she drowned?
Yes.
First she went to try to drown him, and then some people were there, so she left. And then she went somewhere else and drowned him, and said that a black man had kidnapped the boy.
The car.
Yeah, the car pulled up and snatched the son out. and the son was missing, and come to find out that she had drowned her.
She had attempted to kill this
Yeah,
boy
twice.
2 times.
And of course her story unraveled, and we found out that I think she was even on video. They had
Yes.
video
Yeah.
of her
The
trying.
very first time she was on video, she was captured on video, she was dragging him out of that little lake. And then she was saying that he wandered over there and she was saving him. But in fact, she was actually the one that was actually trying to drown him. So you're absolutely right. That
That's a
did
good
happen
friend.
this year.
That's a good, yeah.
That did
I
happen.
think I said that two black men had ambushed her, and
Mhm.
you know, like, why would they just ambush her for no reason?
Right. I read an article which is published on the innocenceproject.org. If you're not familiar with the Innocence Project, that is an organization headed up by Barry Scheck. Barry Scheck was on O.J. Simpson's legal team. Um, and the Innocence Project is basically an organization that will inmates and their families, those convicted, I won't say inmates, but those convicted of crimes can send their case to the Innocence Project. And what they do is they will go over the cases and they will, look at all the evidence that they can and find a case that they think that there has been an egregious miscarriage of justice and a case that they can prove that. And they go to bat for these guys, and they really believe in getting people exonerated and going through. And it's not just for uh, uh, black men and women, convicts, or or convictions or cases. It is everybody. On Netflix, there is a documentary series on Netflix about the Innocence Project. And if I tell you that it hurts to see and to read about and look at cases where as a viewer you're listening to these stories and you're like, how could a jury convict? How could a human, a prosecutor, or a police officer move forward with a case that is incorrect, that is wrong? There is absolutely no evidence, but you railroad these people to get a conviction, and they go to
Yeah.
prison for life. And then 30 years later, when an organization like the Innocence Project is going through and trying to get the people justice, they double down and say, well, we did nothing wrong. How do you sleep? It's heartbreaking to watch these cases. But go to Netflix and watch that. I will try to find the name of that and put that also in the show notes. um but
I have to think about not necessarily um like old girl that was in the park with her dog and called on the black man who was watching the birds. Oh, he's attacking me. Yeah, I don't feel safe. And
mhm.
the whole time, like, she's lying to the police. So that makes me know exactly what you're doing. You know what
Right.
you're
And they
calling,
know, and
saying that this black man, that I'm a poor defenseless woman, and this big black man is here and he's threatening. I feel threatened. She knew exactly what she was doing.
and it's very clear, because historically, and I don't care what anybody says, you cannot say that in this country that you don't know what it means or what the possible consequence is if you accuse a black man of assaulting, especially a white woman. Now, you can call the police, a black woman or a woman of color can call the police on a black man, and the police might take their time to get there. That is a true story. Don't dispute me on that. Don't argue. A
That's
black
very
woman can call the police on a white man. The police might take their time to get there.
right.
But if a white woman calls the police on a black man,
Right.
they are on the way. And that is historically true. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Um, that threat is huge, because it has always, this country has always held the belief that, of course, Black men are more likely to be sexually aggressive, uh,
Mm-hmm.
you know, without sense, without rational thought, and
Yeah.
basically animals and savages. So they are going to attack this white woman, and that alone, you know, in most states would brought death. A death sentence for a sexual assault was a death sentence,
Mm-hmm.
not life in prison. That was the standard sentence, was death for assaulting a white woman. And this is not to say that no Black man has ever assaulted any white woman before. Nope, nope. But for the whatever the percentage is, look at all the ones that didn't do it. Look at all the ones who were accused and who went to the chamber, who went to the gallows, who were lynched, and they didn't do it. And it was all because of an accusation. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why the lady was able to, last March, was able to tell the police that two Black men uh tried to
Amber.
abduct her son, ambushed her, and tried to abduct her son. And no one questions it in the
There
very
you go.
beginning. No one questions it in the very
There you
beginning. In the
go. That's
very
what I was just
beginning,
gonna
it's a
say.
knee-jerk reaction.
Not
They
one
did
person
it.
questioned. Not
No.
one person.
Once the story starts to fall apart, then it's, this doesn't make sense. But in the very beginning, it's yes, because that's the thought, that's the prevailing thought, that Black men are going to do this.
Right.
Black men did this. A Black man came here and out of nowhere came and snatched my groceries, and he was driving a 2019 Mercedes G-Wagon, and he snatched my groceries at Whole Foods. And the cops will never say, "Ma'am, why would a man who's driving, who was just shopping with you in Whole Foods, why would he snatch your groceries? If he
Mm-hmm.
was in Whole Foods, why is he snatching your groceries?" That's not the thought, but it's the threat to white womanhood that does this. And it is so common and so um it's been done so often that it's normal.
Brand, do you remember the other week? I think last week that we were saying in a joking manner, but it was very real about the whole sketch artist thing. We were saying how she'll say, "Oh, he had a sharp nose and just stringy blonde hair and all this stuff," and then show you the picture and it's a afro and a big broad nose and big lip. That's him. That's him.
Right. Like
I
how
mean,
do we
we were
how do
joking
we get
about it,
there?
but we were joking about it, but you know,
Yeah, how do we get from Topher to Jamal?
yeah.
Not Topher.
Because there was a little boy who my neighbor used to babysit him, and his name was Topher. His name was Christopher, but they called him Topher, and Topher was obsessed with cowboys. And this is totally not in any way related to the story, but Topher loved cowboys, and he used to come over to Miss Pinkham's house, and he used to have like his whole cowboy gear on. I'm talking about rhinestones and the hat and the belt and all this stuff. And he used to walk around
Rhinestone
singing
cowboy.
Rhinestone Cowboy. That's was his song too. That was Topher's song. So anytime I think of some, just a generic name for a white guy, it's always Topher. Um,
I like that name.
yeah. So the shout out to Topher. That's an homage to Topher from Little Boy from Across the Street. But yes, a witness can, eyewitness testimony is the most unreliable testimony that there is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because your eye can be tricked. On TikTok right now, there's like a little trend of them showing a very provocative video or picture, and then somebody will come back on and ask you, "Where's the fan?" or "What color was the cup?" or
Yeah.
"What color was the wall?" You don't listen. There's one of these videos where there's this really tall, very well built white guy. I'm telling you, he is stacked like 3 pallets worth of bricks, y'all. And you're watching this man, he's sitting down and then he gets up. And my God, he gets up. And the next thing you see, somebody's like, "Where's the dog?"
Then you gotta
I'm
go
like, I didn't even see the couch.
Yeah, you gotta go
Right.
rewatch.
I'm like, I didn't even see the couch that he was sitting on, let alone the damn dog.
Mhm.
So your eye can be tricked because you're focused on one thing. So you could say he had a broad nose and his nose was very slender, or he had brown eyes when his eyes were green. All of these things can be manipulated. And we know that in a lot of cases in interrogations, the police will suggest certain things. Oh, yeah, but wasn't he about this height? Well, yeah. Didn't
Yeah.
he look like this? Oh, yeah. And then this morphs into a composite sketch that looks nothing like what the person saw.
Yeah.
Yeah. They kind of
Nothing.
push
So
them
yeah,
into the image. When they feel
yes,
like they're not going anywhere, they push them into an image that they want them to see, or
that
that they
fits the
want them
theory.
to know about. Mm-hmm.
Yes, the image that fits the theory. So we did talk about that in the zebra killings last week, where
Mm.
um, they were looking for a black man with, what was it, a slender face and a short afro in San Francisco in
7.
1973.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody got effort.
That's everybody. Such a vague description. Now, talking about vague descriptions, we are going to talk about Susan Smith. Um, in
Yeah.
1994, Susan Smith, from South Carolina. Susan Smith was married. She had two kids. Michael was 3, and Alexander was about 14 months old. And
Mm-hmm.
she was having an affair with the boss's son.
Yep.
And he had let her know that he would like to have a life with her, but her kids weren't welcome in that life. And instead of her divorcing her husband, which she was a Christian, her family was a Christian family, um, conservative Christian family. So I'm guessing that divorce wasn't an option. She put her kids in the car, strapped them in.
Mm-hmm.
She gets to an intersection, and she said, what she says is that she was contemplating killing herself, which she had tried to commit suicide when she was a teen, but she was contemplating killing herself, but she decided not to at the last minute. So she rolled her car into a lake with both of her sons in the back seat, strapped into their car seats. The boys were awake.
Oof.
The children were awake. And so that means that Michael, who was 3 years old, saw his mommy get out of that car and
Yes.
was probably asking or screaming, "Mommy, what are you?" And as they go into this lake, they're watching the water rise and rise and rise and rise in this car, confused and no doubt in all kinds of pain. And she let them drown.
Mm-hmm.
She then goes, finds a phone, and calls the police, and she tells them that she has been carjacked by two African American men. And the description that she gave them was so vague that there was no composite sketch. It was so vague that it actually fit half of the men in the county.
Yep.
And what happened for 9 days from October 25th till November 3rd, when she admitted what she did, for 9 days, the entire country was in upheaval. Young black men everywhere were, there was a target on their back. I'm
Right.
talking about from the coast of California all the way back to South Carolina, because they were thinking that these men had carjacked her, took her car with her kids in it, and were driving across the country because they had no idea who this was. And I remember this, that it was like open season on all young black men, even older black men. And there was really no way for the police to say it was that guy or he looks like that guy. Hell, it's all of them.
Right.
She unleashed hell for 9 days. Like, people were like, don't go outside, don't go to work. Like no one will, you know what I mean? Like you're telling your family members like, don't go outside because we don't want the police to get you because they're looking for young black men. Well, that's 30% of the population. So on November 3rd, her story started to fall apart. Like Randy said, that there's always cracks. And she finally admitted what she did. And she said she wasn't in her right mind. Well, you had the wherewithal to call the police and tell them that black men did it. You know why? Because you knew that if you say white men did it, you have to give a reason why they would do it. Who do you know? Who does your husband know? Who are you involved with?
Right.
What do they look like? But with black men, all you have to do is say a black man did it. That's enough to get the heat off.
That's a special kind of monster right there. I always thought that that's
this country created.
That's what, you know, when you describe what those babies had to their last experience. Every time I think about that as a parent, the only other thing, that's a special type of monster right there. And to use the excuse, you know, wasn't in my right mind is a lie, because you knew exactly what you were doing, because you were able to come up with a lie.
You planned the whole thing out.
Thank you. It's planned.
So,
right.
Because if she was out of her mind, she just would have been driving, and she would have been in the car too.
Mm-hmm.
He would have went in the car too. And you would have never come up with it like these black men did it. And because you knew that the best way to get the heat off of me is to say this, because that is like the draw 4 card in Uno. When somebody has that one card and they've already yelled Uno out, you're like, not today. Draw 4.
Mm-hmm.
That's a draw 4 card. You know what it is. That's the big joker in spades. You know what's about to happen. That's that double 5 in dominoes. You know you're about to score.
Yeah.
So you know what you're doing. And again, that is a monster that this country has created. Interesting thing about Susan Smith, she has been, and this is from an article I found at the New York Post, and I'll post this as well. This is an article from November 18th, so just a few days ago. She is actually eligible for parole in the next 4 years.
Really?
She got a 30-year sentence.
Yes.
She's eligible for parole, so she could possibly be out. Yeah. But I mean, again, this happened in 1994, so that 30 years is on its, it's on its way out. But while she's been in prison, she has been cited for drug abuse and having several inappropriate relationships with prison personnel. I'm talking about from the guards, the correctional officers, and a few wardens. This girl been doing the damn
Don't
thing.
sound like a hurt lady to me. Mm-hmm.
Not
Don't sound like no hurt lady to me.
Not at
yes,
all. But so she is eligible for parole in the next couple of years.
I remember
find out what happens with
that. Yeah, that'll be interesting. Well, I remember when that story came too. When I tell you, I ain't never seen my mama so mad at a person in my life. She was so pissed off. She was like, it was one of those crying moments, like, how dare you?
Mm-hmm.
How dare you?
Mm-hmm.
Sit there and then it was a couple of guys. I mean, they were taking men in left and right. I mean,
yeah, they arrested somebody, but they had to let them go. I wasn't able to find who they arrested, but I remember that they did arrest a guy, and they had to let him go. Excuse me, with my allergies, y'all. That's the thing. It's part of the show, like church announcements. But yeah, they arrested somebody during that time, and he wasn't even a young guy. They arrested somebody who was an older gentleman, a couple older gentlemen that they detained. One thing that, like you said, your mom was like, angry and upset. One thing that we will do in this community is, we were talking about this last week about snitching and whether or not we would tell, you know, if someone in our community did something to get the heat off. But on the other side of that is we can tell when something like this comes out, we are very skeptical and we are giving serious side eye. We're like, they didn't do that.
Yeah, like
They didn't do
like
that.
that, like those people that had said that some black people came and sprayed black people rule all over their garage. Like,
We were like, no, but
use that type of language. Black people rule. That's
In the cemeteries, they were talking about like they put BLM on some of the gravestones. We're like, we ain't did that because we don't really do
we'll be
we
hanging
don't
out.
really do graveyards and cemeteries like
Yeah.
that. Black
And we
no,
definitely
we don't really do the desecration thing.
and we don't do blacks rule.
You know?
No, I ain't never said no blacks rule.
Not even when people were saying it, were we saying blacks rule?
Yeah, I'm like, we don't say that.
Right.
We're gonna, well, I seen on that fence. I said, why they lying? Because they know there ain't no black person put that on there.
Just
Why
like
are y'all
the black
even
men
out?
who are carjacking are going to take some white kids. Now, if they might want the car, they may take them white kids out and
Yeah. Go on over there with your mama. But we're
put
not
them
taking the white
somewhere.
kids.
You're not taking off with no white kids in the back of your car. That's you're not.
Brandy,
You're not
you were
doing
just
that.
talking about the episode of Blackish where Anthony Anderson's character saw the little 3-year-old white girl on the elevator and she looked like she was lost and he was like, he pushed that down button, let her little ass go back down by herself.
Yes, he did.
Because there's still very much in this episode, what was 2 years ago? It is very much, it's still very much true that Black masculinity is a threat to white people, is a perceived threat to white people, because it isn't. Because let me tell y'all, we ain't studying nobody. Let me tell y'all, okay? Now, those who are criminals are going to be criminals no matter what color they are, and they're going to do what they're going to do regardless, okay? Because they have a plan already. Someone who is strung out on drugs, they're going to do what they're going to do no matter what color they are. But as a general rule, Black folks ain't studying.
No.
We not. We don't want to be bothered.
No.
We think you're going to do something to us. We don't even care because we be looking at y'all like y'all doing way too much. You doing too much. We don't care. Okay, ladies, move. We don't care. So yeah, that's a thing. That's still very, very much a thing. And you know, we dig and we find historic, you know, where this happens historically. But we have a serious case of that in March 2020, where the woman killed her son and still blamed it on Black men. So that's a thing. Also, when I was looking at the Innocence Project, there's a man called Purvis Payne out of Shelby County, Tennessee. He is scheduled to be executed December 3rd of this year. In 1985, he was arrested for the rape and murder of a Tennessee woman and her daughter, her small daughter. The prosecution portrayed this man as an alcoholic, a drug fiend, and all of this. However, every witness, everyone who knows this man has said he's soft-spoken, hardworking man, doesn't do drugs, doesn't drink.
Confused.
Mr. Payne didn't even have a criminal record. Did not have a criminal record. Now, he was a grown man in 1985. Didn't have a criminal record, didn't drink, didn't do drugs. When he was arrested, and I will post this article so you can see it. This article was actually posted on the Emmett Till's birthday. That's why it stood out. When he was arrested, his mother told the police, give him a drug test. You're saying that he did this while he was on drugs and that the woman like spurned his advances, like he was trying to get with her and she turned him down, and in his drug-filled haze, he attacked her and her daughter. She's like, give him a drug test. They never drug tested him.
Wow.
Yet they probably knew he didn't need it, but they needed to pin it on somebody.
Right.
And can't just have no man out here attacking women and children.
Right. And in Shelby County, Tennessee, very interesting fact about Shelby County. Historically, there are about 4,700, almost 5,000 men and women who've been lynched in this country.
Wow.
Most of them, the one place that it happened the most was in Shelby County, Tennessee. So this place is not kind, not kind to Black folks. So there is no physical evidence, zero physical evidence that Purvis Payne committed this crime. I mean, none
Wow.
at all. And this man is scheduled to be executed in December. So in the next 2.5 weeks, he is scheduled to be executed pending DNA um, results from a DNA test. But here's the thing: how can you execute someone with zero physical evidence in this modern
Yeah.
era? In the modern era, you have zero physical evidence. No saliva, no blood, no nothing, nothing in the rape kit, nothing. But yet, this man is eligible for the death penalty. Why? Why?
That doesn't make any sense.
And if in cases like this where there is no physical evidence of the attacker or the or the murderer, the rapist, or whatever, there's no physical evidence. The one person that they can pick out and that's likely to be convicted is a Black man.
Yeah.
They don't even have to try hard. We don't have any other suspects. We can pick this Black guy and we'll get a predominantly white jury and we'll paint the story of how horrible he is and how great she is, and they'll get off.
Does he have a petition going?
Yes. In the article from Innocence Project, and again, I'll post that. You can.
Please.
There's a link in there for support of Purvis Payne, so I will include that into the show notes. So this is very serious because this man has a few weeks to receive a stay of execution.
Yes.
So that is something that is going on right now. So I thought I would include that. Um,
I need to.
I mean, let's just go through a few things. Okay, so a lot of us have heard about Brian Banks. That's the guy. They recently did a movie, but he had a sexual relationship with a girl, and she told her parents that it was rape.
Ooh.
He's convicted of rape. He loses his scholarship. He loses his chance to go to the NFL. Ruins his life. Later
Yeah.
on, it comes out that she told her parents that because she didn't want them to know she was having sex with the Black guy.
The Black guy. Mm-hmm.
And that is enough to get you convicted. And the thoughts of a white woman desiring a Black man is so abhorrent to the white community, especially, you know, back in the 50s or whatever. Even the thought kind of still prevails now, but that was so important. That's why Black men were so easily convicted, because this thought that a white woman would actually desire a Black man was so foreign and so taboo that, of course, even if it was a consensual relationship, it was in the thoughts of white society. This can't happen. This is not at all possible that a white woman would be attracted to a Black man, which we know that this is not true. Um,
And it tends to be a not I ain't gonna say that. It tends to be a Black mother's fear when you have a son. I'm gonna say it. It is.
you have a
As a
Black son. Randy has a Black son. So
and
this is the thing.
it's
So
it's
Yeah,
I, I thought
we
about
had
it
the
today.
conversation. We've had it. Because Lodge said, Mom, you're racist. It shouldn't matter. But I'm like, no, I'm not saying that you cannot date white girls. Like this, you live
Right.
in Alabama. I said she may like you. But her dad
Thank
may
you.
not like you. And it might not have anything with you being a good boyfriend or treating her well. It might have nothing to do with that. He may not like you just because you're Black. And, you know, that's so hard. That was hard for him to understand at that age. You know, Obama was president. So, you know, and he's just never, I guess, you know, he's kind of sheltered from that type of thing up until maybe about Trayvon was really when we had to sit down and really have a discussion with the boys about how you conduct yourself, you know, not walking with your hands in your pockets and all of that stuff. But he was like, and I said, there's nothing, I don't care who you date. I don't care. My
Right.
thing is, you need to be aware that even though she likes you and you like him, there will be an issue. Because what if her dad doesn't like you simply because you're a Black boy? And it was just like, you know, he was like it, why? Like, you know, he didn't understand. I think he was maybe 6th grade at that time, probably 6th grade, because he was in junior high school. And I was like, no, I don't care. I don't care who. I don't care who. Long as she ain't, I don't want no ugly grandkids.
At that age, he would have been looked at as an adult, as a man, you know. So in our society, Black boys and Black girls are adults. We are not allowed to grow up organically. And when we're 12 years old, we are considered full women. We are looked at like that. And boys are looked at as full men.
That's the thing with Elijah, because, you know, he was very outgoing. He was, you know, sang in the choir, and, you know, and I think the only thing that, I won't say saved him, but the only reason that didn't become an issue was because Elijah was small for his age at that time, and he looked like a little boy, where the other Black boys his age looked older than he did. He looked like he was still probably in the 4th grade, and the boys that the other girls were going after looked mature compared to him. Otherwise, you know, they probably would have had a white girlfriend, but that's the only reason that he probably did not, because I remember having the conversation, and I had to say to him, like, I don't care what girl you bring. Like I said, just don't bring no ugly girl on my doorstep. I don't care what,
no matter what color she is, can't be ugly.
Yeah, because Jack was an athlete, so his started when he started quarterback. So once that happened, it was on and popping. And I remember telling him, like, I don't want you to think that you can't never date anyone outside your race. Love is love. I want you to move with precaution and understand that they still have a tendency, because of our history, they have a tendency to make you feel like I'm on your side, but then kind of sway. I've seen it with my own eyes happen with my family, that they sway when the opportunity presents itself, to where if it's either you or them, you are going down. I promise you that. And lo and behold,
it don't matter how fast he runs that ball. It don't matter.
No. In the end, you are reduced to your skin color. You know, was a professor, a senator, a state senator, a U.S. senator, president of the Harvard Law Review, and in the end, and then the president of the United States. And in the end, he is reduced to a 5-letter word. Stay tuned for part 2 of episode 21, where we talk about false accusations and the consequences that it has on the Black community and the community at large. So again, thank you so much for joining us on Black Coffee and Crime. And again, stay tuned for part 2.